For nearly a century, people have claimed that a small clay jar, sitting quietly in a museum collection in Baghdad, could generate electricity. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, actually generate an electrical current, the same way a modern battery does. That is a remarkable claim, and today we are going to examine it carefully, because the truth of this story is far more interesting than either the believers or the skeptics tend to admit. The artifact in question is deceptively simple. It is a clay jar, roughly 15 centimeters tall. Inside the jar sits a rolled copper cylinder, sealed at its base with a copper disc. Through the center of that cylinder runs an iron rod. The whole assembly is plugged at the top with bitumen, the same thick, tar-like material ancient Near Eastern builders used for waterproofing and mortar. On the surface, it looks almost unremarkable. And yet, this modest little object has been at the center of one of archaeology's most persistent and passionate debates. We first heard about it from the wider world through Wilhelm Koenig, an Austrian archaeologist working at the Iraq Museum in Baghdad in 1938. Koenig believed the jar had been found near Kujut Rabu, close to the ancient Parthian city of Ctesiphon, just southeast of modern Baghdad. Based on the pottery style and surrounding material, scholars date the object to somewhere within the Parthian to early Sasanian period, roughly 150 BCE to 650 CE, a time when Mesopotamia was a crossroads of trade and craft between the Persian, Roman, and Eastern worlds. Koenig's radical suggestion was that this jar functioned as a primitive galvanic cell. In other words, an ancient battery. The logic behind the battery hypothesis is genuinely compelling. When you place two dissimilar metals, copper and iron in this case, into an acidic liquid, a chemical reaction produces an electrical potential. Fill this jar with vinegar or fermented grape juice or any acidic liquid readily available in the ancient world, and you theoretically have a working electrochemical cell. And experimenters have put this to the test. Willard F. M. Gray of General Electric constructed an early replica using copper sulfate solution and reported it worked. More famously, the television program Mythbusters assembled 10 replica jars connected in series, filled them with lemon juice, and measured approximately 4 1/3 volts of electrical potential. Individual jars, depending on construction, typically yield somewhere between 0.5 volt and 1.5 volts. The physics, in short, is plausible. The replicas do generate electricity. And that is precisely where the story becomes complicated, because here is a question worth sitting with. The very term we use to describe this jar's supposed function, the galvanic cell, comes from Luigi Galvani, who discovered bioelectricity in the 1780s. That means the vocabulary we use to explain the artifact did not exist until nearly 2,000 years after the jar itself was made. We invented the concept first, and then looked backward into history and saw it reflected in the clay. That is not evidence of ancient electricity. That is a very seductive kind of pattern recognition. And it is precisely where the popular myth-making begins. The history was wrong narrative, the lost knowledge, the idea of an ancient civilization ahead of its time. But what does the actual archaeological evidence say? Here, the skeptical case is powerful. To begin with, the original excavation record for this jar is poorly documented. We cannot be entirely certain where it was found, what surrounded it, or how it was used. And without that context, any interpretation of its function is largely speculative. More damning still, no electroplated objects have ever been convincingly identified from the Parthian or Sasanian archaeological record. If ancient craftspeople had mastered electroplating using these jars, we would expect to find metal artifacts with thin, electrically deposited surface coatings. chemically distinct from gilding achieved through fire or mercury amalgamation, both of which are well documented. Modern forensic tools, X-ray fluorescence, and scanning electron microscopy can detect electrically deposited metal at the microscopic level. Researchers have applied these methods to metal artifacts from this era, and so far, the result is zero evidence of electroplating. None. It is also worth noting that the Mythbusters, to their credit, acknowledged they used optimized replicas with purpose-chosen electrolytes and modern construction refinements. That nuance almost never survives into the viral posts that cite the episode as proof. And finally, not a single text, not from Parthian, Sasanian, Babylonian, Greek, or Roman sources, describes anything resembling a device that produces electrical current. For a discovery as revolutionary as controllable electricity, that silence is remarkable. So what might the Baghdad Battery actually be? The most culturally grounded answer points toward ritual and magic. The ancient Near East had a rich, well-documented tradition of burying sealed containers holding curse tablets, protective inscriptions, and amulets, sometimes rolled metal strips inside clay pots, sealed with intent. The Baghdad Battery's form fits this tradition almost perfectly. Multiple similar jars reportedly exist in museum collections, which suggests they were produced with purpose. We simply do not yet know what that purpose was. What we do know is that the craftspeople of the Parthian and Sasanian world were sophisticated and deliberate. Recent research into Sasanian metalwork has shown they were actively experimenting with new alloys, connecting beauty, function, and innovation in ways that continue to impress modern scholars. These were not primitive people stumbling blindly toward technology. They were skilled artisans operating within rich traditions. And that very sophistication makes the absence of any electrical application all the more telling. Here, then, is where I invite you to weigh the evidence yourselves. A replica of this jar can generate a small electrical current. That much is true. But there is no compelling evidence that generating electricity was its ancient purpose. Resemblance to a modern object is not proof of identical function. The Baghdad Battery is best understood as a genuinely intriguing, genuinely unresolved mystery, not a confirmed relic of lost ancient electricity. The deeper lesson this small clay jar offers us is not about what ancient people knew. It is about how powerfully the frameworks of the present shape what we think we see in the past. We look at two metals sealed in a ceramic vessel, and our minds reach immediately for the nearest familiar category, the battery. The artifact becomes a mirror, reflecting our own assumptions back at us. The Baghdad Battery may be archaeology's most eloquent example of that very human tendency, to find the story we are already looking for, written in the artifacts of people who never knew we were watching. The evidence is on the table. I encourage you to keep examining it. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and never stop looking a little more closely at what history is actually trying to tell us.